If you're listening at night, you might regret pressing play. This is creepy darker, and tonight's story will make you question every sound in the dark. Ready? Let's begin. I don't drive down that stretch of highway anymore. Not if I can avoid it. People say I'm overreacting, that nothing actually happened, but they weren't there. They didn't see the way he looked at me or hear what he said. They didn't feel that cold, crawling sensation that creeps up your spine when you realize something is very, very wrong. It was around 11 p.m. when my gas light came on. I had been driving back from visiting my sister, a long drive through 3 states, and had foolishly thought I could make it home without stopping again. The highway was empty, just the kind of emptiness you only get on weeknights in rural areas, where you can go 20 minutes without seeing another car. When I finally saw the glow of a gas station, I felt a sense of relief. It was one of those old, independent stations that somehow still exists, surrounded by nothing but farmland and darkness. A flickering fluorescent light illuminated the pumps, and the convenience store had a sickly yellow glow. There were no other cars. I thought it was odd for a gas station off the highway, but I was tired and just wanted to get home. I pulled up to pump 3, got out, and immediately felt how much colder it was than when I'd stopped for dinner 2 hours earlier. I swiped my card and started pumping gas. When I noticed him, he was standing just outside the light, near the store entrance, looking at me. I hadn't seen him when I pulled in. He wore a dark jacket and jeans, hands in his pockets, completely still. At first, I tried to ignore it. People hang out outside gas stations, I told myself. Maybe he was just taking a break, but he wasn't smoking. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, facing me. The pump seemed to take forever. I kept my eyes on the numbers, feeling his gaze on me the whole time. When the pump finally clicked off at $32, I yanked the nozzle out and shoved it back in the holder. I was about to get back in my car and leave. No bathroom break, no coffee, I just wanted to go. But as I reached for the door handle, he called out to me, "Sarah." I froze. He knew my name. This stranger at this isolated gas station in the middle of nowhere had just said my name. I turned slowly, still gripping the door handle. He stepped forward into the light. He looked about 40. With a lean face and dark eyes that glowed under the fluorescent light. He wasn't smiling, but his expression wasn't threatening either. It was neutral, waiting. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice smaller than I expected. "You're Sarah, right?" he asked, tilting his head. "Sarah Mitchell." My full name. My heart pounded in my chest, but I tried to stay calm. "Do I know you?" "Not yet," he replied, taking a casual step closer. "But I know you saw your profile. You're even prettier in person." My profile? My social media? My stomach dropped. My Facebook was private, but I'd posted a story earlier that day from a rest stop complaining about the long drive. Had I tagged my location? I couldn't remember. "I think you have me confused with someone else," I said, trying to sound firm. I opened the car door. "I need to go." "Wait," he said, holding up his hand. "Don't you want to know how I know where you'd be?" I didn't answer. I just fumbled with my car key, my hands shaking as I tried to start the engine. "You posted about visiting your sister in Columbus. Posted about leaving at 7 p.m. Posted a picture of your dashboard with the highway sign in the background. Basic math from there. 3 hours on I-7. You'd need gas right about now. This is the only station for 30 miles in either direction." I got the car started, my hands trembling so much I could barely grip the wheel. He was walking toward my car now, steady, calm steps. I threw the car in reverse. "There's no need to be rude, Sarah," he called out, his voice now carrying an edge of irritation. "I've been waiting here for 2 hours. The least you could do is talk to me for a few minutes." I came all this way. I didn't look back. I slammed the car into drive and peeled out of the station so fast that my tires squealed. I merged onto the highway without even checking for other cars. My whole body was shaking. I kept checking my rearview mirror, expecting to see headlights behind me. But the road stayed dark. I drove for an hour before I felt like I could breathe again. He had tracked me, used my social media posts to figure out where I'd be and when. He'd waited for me. If I'd been just 5 minutes later, if I'd stopped for food or a bathroom break, or if I'd pulled up to a different pump, who knows what would have happened. When I got home, I immediately checked all my social media. My Instagram was public. I'd never bothered to change it. I went through my posts. The rest stop picture was there, timestamp visible. The highway sign clearly showing where I was. A picture from my sister's backyard showing her house number. Another post from 3 days ago saying I was excited for my trip. I had given a stranger my entire itinerary. I deleted everything and made every account private, but it was too late. He knew my name, what I looked like, where I'd been, and now, he knew my car and my license plate. 2 days later, I got a follow request on Instagram. The profile had no picture, just a blank avatar and a random string of numbers as the username. No posts, no followers. I almost declined it right away, but something made me click. There was one post, a blurry, dark photo taken at night. It was the gas station, and in the caption, "Until next time." I blocked the account immediately, but it didn't matter. He was still out there, watching. What scares me the most is that I'll never know how many other women he's done this to, how many others he's tracked, waited for, in the middle of nowhere. Had they gotten away like I did, or had I just been lucky? I still have to drive through that area sometimes, for work or family. I always make sure I fill up before I get anywhere near that stretch of highway. I leave my phone on, with location sharing enabled for 3 different friends. I never stop at that gas station. Sometimes, in the daylight, the gas station looks normal, just an old station off the highway. But I know what waits there in the dark, and I know, now, that someone might still be watching, waiting for me to slip up, to post something, anything that tells him where I'll be. My accounts are private now. My posts are vague. I never tag locations. But I made one mistake last week. I posted a picture of my new apartment building, celebrating moving in. I was careful. I didn't include the address, didn't show any street signs, just a photo of the exterior with a caption about new beginnings. It got the usual likes from friends, but there was one late at night, after I'd gone to bed. When I woke up, I saw it. A profile with a blank avatar and a string of random numbers for a username. It was different numbers, but I knew. I clicked on the profile. There was one post, again, a blurry picture of my apartment building, and in the bio, "Brick looks good on you." I blocked the account, changed my passwords, made everything even more private, but it didn't matter. It's too late now. He found me once. He can find me again. The worst part is I'll never know when he's close. I'll never know if he's watching me from a parking lot or sitting across from me at a coffee shop, just waiting. All because I posted a picture at a rest stop and didn't think anyone would care enough to notice. The night shift. I worked the graveyard shift at a gas station for 8 months. 8 months of stocking shelves, cleaning spills, and watching the clock tick toward morning. People always asked me if I ever got scared working alone at night, and I'd laugh it off. Nothing ever happened, I'd tell them. It's boring, more than anything else. But that changed when the man with the rental car started coming in. The first time I saw him was on a Tuesday around 2 a.m., the deadest time of night. It was after the bar crowd had gone home, but before the early morning commuters started showing up. I was restocking the energy drink cooler when I heard the door chime. I looked up and saw him standing just inside the entrance, like he wasn't sure if he wanted to come in. He looked to be in his 52nds, average height, wearing khakis and a polo shirt that looked too neat for 2 a.m. Clean cut, almost corporate, the kind of guy who looked like he should be at a business conference, not a gas station in the middle of the night. He gave me a polite nod and headed straight for the coffee station. I went back to stalking, not thinking much of it. But then I noticed he wasn't pouring coffee. He was just standing there, holding an empty cup, facing the coffee maker but not moving, just standing completely still. I watched him for a few moments, and when he finally snapped out of it, he started filling his cup. He paid in exact change, didn't say a word, and left. It was strange, but not alarming. Working nights, you see all kinds of weird behavior. People on meds, people running on little sleep, people who are just awkward, but he came back 2 nights later, at almost exactly the same time, 2:07 a.m. According to the timestamp on the security footage. Same routine. He stood at the entrance for a few seconds, walked to the coffee station, stood there motionless, poured his coffee, paid in exact change, and left. This time, I noticed his car, a silver sedan, with a generic rental company barcode still visible in the back window. The 3rd time he came in, I decided to be friendly. "You must really like our coffee," I said as he approached the counter. He gave me a blank look, no smile, no frown, just nothing, like he had to process what I said before responding. "It's convenient," he finally said, his voice flat, almost mechanical. "You in town for work?" I asked, trying to make conversation. It was quiet, and I appreciated any interaction, even small talk. He handed me exact change again, $3.47, just like always, then left without another word. After that, he came in every night, always between 2 and 2:15 a.m., always the same routine. He would stand at the entrance, walk to the coffee, stand motionless, pour his coffee, pay an exact change, and leave. Never bought gas, never anything else, just coffee, and the same amount every time. By the 2nd week, I started feeling uneasy. There was something off about him, though I couldn't figure out what. Maybe it was the way he never seemed to blink, or how his movements were almost rehearsed, like he was following a script. Or maybe it was because he clearly stayed somewhere nearby. You don't drive to the same gas station every night at the same time for just coffee unless you're close by. But there was nothing around us except a few scattered houses, an old motel about a mile up the road, and farmland. One night, I decided to watch him through the window after he left. He got into his rental car, but didn't drive away. He just sat there, completely still in the driver's seat. I watched for about 10 minutes, and he didn't move once. He didn't look at his phone, adjust his mirror, or do anything, just stared ahead at the gas pumps. Finally, he started the car and drove off. But instead of turning back onto the highway, he turned onto a side road that led past the houses and the motel. I started paying more attention. His polo shirt was always the same color, light blue, and his khakis always the same shade. I couldn't tell if he wore the same clothes every night or had multiple identical outfits. His shoes were always spotless, even though it had rained several times that week and the parking lot was full of puddles. But the thing that really got to me was his hands. They were always so clean, almost unnaturally so. His nails were trimmed perfectly, and the skin looked scrubbed. I know it sounds strange, but when you work retail, you notice hands. You see hands with grease, with calluses, with ink stains, but his hands looked like they'd just been scrubbed with a surgical brush. I mentioned him to my manager during one shift overlap. "Oh, the coffee guy," she said. "Yeah, he's strange, but he's not causing any trouble. Just leave him be." But I couldn't leave it be. Something about the routine felt wrong. It was the same thing every single night, down to the minute. People aren't that consistent. They vary, even if it's just slightly arriving a few minutes earlier or later, pouring different amounts of coffee, saying something different, or not saying anything at all. But not him. He was like a program running the same loop over and over. One Thursday night, or technically Friday morning, I decided to break his routine. When he came in and headed to the coffee station, I called out to him, "Hey, Just so you know, I'm about to start a fresh pot. That one's been sitting for a while. If you can wait like 2 minutes, you'll get better coffee." He stopped mid-step, frozen. For a long moment, he just stood there, his back to me, not moving. Then, slowly, very slowly, he turned around. The look on his face made my stomach drop. It wasn't anger. Exactly. But something else, something wrong. His eyes were wide, his jaw clenched, and there was this intensity in him that made me take a step back. "I'll take this pot," he said quietly, his voice now sharp and barely controlled. "Okay. Sure. No problem," I said quickly, trying to stay casual even though my heart was pounding. He poured his coffee in silence, and the tension in the store was so thick I could barely breathe. When he came to pay, his hands were shaking as he counted out the exact change. The coins clinked against the counter harder than usual. He wouldn't look at me. After he left, I locked the door. I wasn't supposed to. This was a 24-hour station, but I didn't care. I watched through the window as he sat in his car again, but this time his hands were gripping the steering wheel. I could see his mouth moving like he was talking to himself. He stayed there for almost 20 minutes before finally driving away. I thought maybe that would be the end of it. Maybe I'd freaked him out as much as he'd freaked me out, and he'd move on to a different gas station. But he came back the next night. Same time, same routine. Except this time, when he stood at the coffee station, he stayed even longer than usual. I timed it 4 minutes and 38 seconds of him just holding an empty cup, staring at the coffee maker. When he came to the counter, he spoke without me saying anything first. "Do you live around here?" Every instinct in my body screamed at me to lie. "No," I said. "I commute from the city." That was a lie. I lived just 10 minutes away in a small rental house off the same side road he always took when he left. He nodded slowly, studying my face. "That's a long drive for a night shift." "Good podcast time," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He paid and left, but I noticed he sat in his car even longer that night. When he finally drove off, I watched until his taillights disappeared. Then I immediately called my boyfriend and asked him to stay on the phone with me until my shift ended at 6. The next night, he didn't come in at his usual time. 2 a.m. passed, then 2:15, then 2:30. I should have been relieved, but instead, I felt more anxious. Where was he? Why had he broken his routine? At 2:45, a different car pulled up to the pumps. A woman got out, pumped her gas, and left. I started to relax slightly. Maybe he'd moved on. Maybe he'd checked out of wherever he was staying and gone back to wherever he came from. Then at 3:17 a.m., I saw headlights pull into the parking lot. It was the silver rental car. He got out and came inside, and immediately, I knew something was different. He was wearing the same light blue polo and khakis, but his hair was slightly messy. His hands were in his pockets. He didn't go to the coffee station. He walked straight to the counter and just stood there looking at me. "You lied to me," he said softly. My mouth went dry. "What?" "You don't commute from the city," he said. "I watched you leave last week. You turned onto Porter Road. That's not the way to the city." He'd followed me home. I felt like I couldn't breathe. "I don't know what you're talking about," I managed to say, my hand sliding toward my phone behind the counter. "It's okay," he said, and that was somehow worse than if he'd been angry. His voice was gentle, almost soothing. "I understand why you lied. People don't trust strangers. That's smart. But I want you to know I'm not a stranger anymore. We see each other every night. We're familiar now. And I think it's time we got to know each other better. I need you to leave," I said, trying to sound firm. He smiled. It was the first time I'd seen him smile, and I wish I hadn't. It didn't reach his eyes. "I'll leave. I always leave, but I'll be back tomorrow night. And the night after that. And the night after that," he said. leaning forward slightly. "I'm very consistent, you see. Once I start something, I see it through to the end." He left without buying anything. I watched him get in his car, and this time, he drove away immediately, turning onto Porter Road, the same road I took home. I quit the next day. I told my manager it was a family emergency, and I couldn't work nights anymore. She was annoyed but couldn't stop me. I packed up my things from my rental house and stayed with my boyfriend for 2 weeks before finding a new place on the other side of town. A new job, 2 working day shifts at a restaurant. I never saw the man again. But about a month after I quit, my old manager called me. "Hey, do you remember that weird coffee guy?" she asked. "Yeah," I said, my stomach tightening. "He kept coming in for a while after you left. Every night, same time, same routine. But he started asking about you. Wanted to know where you went. If I had your contact information. If I knew where you lived." I told him I didn't know anything. Which was true, she continued. Then he just stopped coming. "Haven't seen him in 2 weeks." "That's good," I said, though I didn't feel good about it. "Yeah. Except," she paused. "The new girl who took your shift," she said. "A guy matching his description has been coming in. But he's not buying coffee anymore. He just comes in, stands near the door for a minute, and leaves like he's looking for something or someone." I thanked her and hung up. I told myself it didn't matter. I was gone. He couldn't find me. But late at night, when I'm lying in bed, I think about what he said about being consistent, about seeing things through to the end. And I wonder what happens when someone like that can't finish what they started. Do they give up? Do they move on? Or do they just keep looking, night after night, following the same routine, waiting for everything to fall back into place? Last week, I was closing at the restaurant when I noticed a silver sedan parked across the street. It was too dark to see if anyone was inside, and it could have been any silver sedan. They're everywhere. I stood at the window for 10 minutes watching, but nothing happened. Eventually, the car drove away. It was probably nothing, just a coincidence. But I've started varying my routine now. I take different routes home. I work different shifts when I can. I never leave at the same time twice, because the thing about patterns is that they can be tracked. And the thing about people who follow patterns religiously is that they expect everyone else to do the same. They wait for you to slip back into routine. They're patient, and I can't shake the feeling that somewhere out there, maybe in another rental car in another town, someone is following their nightly routine, going through the same motions, waiting for their pattern to intersect with mine again. The coffee, I think, was never the point. The wrong bathroom. I've always been cautious when traveling alone. I keep my doors locked. I don't talk to strangers unless I have to, and I trust my instincts when something feels off. But sometimes, no matter how careful you are, danger finds you in the most ordinary places, in the most routine moments. You don't realize how close you came to something terrible until it's almost too late. It happened last November on a road trip from Portland to San Francisco. I had left early in the morning, planning to drive straight through, but by 8 p.m., I was exhausted and still had about 3 hours to go. I decided to take the next exit, rest for a bit, maybe grab some coffee and use the bathroom. The exit was barely marked, just a single gas station and what looked like an abandoned diner a quarter-mile down a dark frontage road. The gas station was old, locally owned, with only 2 pumps and a small attached building. There was one other car parked off to the side near the air pump, but I didn't see anyone around. I parked under the lights near the entrance and went inside. Behind the counter was a guy who couldn't have been more than 20. He had a patchy beard and tired eyes. He barely looked up when I came in. I grabbed a bottle of water and asked where the bathroom was. "Out back," he said, not making eye contact. "Code's 4729. I hesitated. I hated outside bathrooms, especially at night, especially in the middle of nowhere. But I really needed to go. and holding it for another 3 hours didn't sound appealing. I paid for my water and stepped outside. The bathroom was exactly where he said it would be. Around the back of the building, in a small alcove that wasn't visible from the parking lot or the road, there were 2 doors side by side, both with those faded stick figure signs. I punched the code on the women's room door and heard the lock click open. The bathroom was surprisingly clean, which made me feel a little better. Single toilet, small sink, an industrial hand dryer mounted on the wall. The fluorescent light flickered but stayed on. I locked the door behind me, checked it was secure, and did my business. While I was washing my hands, I heard footsteps outside. Heavy footsteps, like work boots on concrete. They stopped right outside the bathroom door. I froze, water still running. A few seconds of silence. Then the door handle rattled. Someone was trying to open it. Occupied. I called out, my voice shaky. The rattling stopped. More silence. Then I heard footsteps again. But this time they didn't walk away. They moved to the men's room next to mine. I could hear the door open and close. I dried my hands quickly, wanting to get out of there and back to my car. But then I heard something that made me stop with my hand on the door handle. The wall between the 2 bathrooms was thin, and I could hear everything happening in the men's room. Footsteps, some shuffling, but no sounds you'd expect to hear in a bathroom. It was just movement, like someone pacing in a small space. Then, I heard something that made my blood run cold, a quiet voice, barely audible through the wall. It wasn't a phone call. The tone was off, urgent, manic. Someone was talking to themselves. I stood there, hands still on the door handle, debating what to do. Should I leave now and risk running into this person? Or wait until they left first? I was starting to feel genuinely frightened, though I couldn't explain exactly why. Someone using the bathroom next to you isn't necessarily a threat, but something about this situation felt wrong. The talking stopped. I heard the men's room door open, and I held my breath, hoping they would leave. But the footsteps didn't fade away. They moved right outside my door. And then, nothing. Complete silence. Someone was standing directly outside the women's bathroom, not moving, not making a sound. 30 seconds passed. Then a minute. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure whoever was outside could hear it. Why weren't they walking away? I tried to think of innocent reasons. Maybe they were waiting for someone. Maybe they were on their phone. Maybe they just needed a moment. But then, the door handle started turning slowly, deliberately, testing the lock. Someone's in here, I called out, trying to sound more confident than I felt. The handle stopped moving. A pause, then a man's voice, calm and almost friendly. Sorry, I thought this was the men's room. You're right, I said quickly, my voice shaky. It's clearly marked. Right, my mistake, he said with a small laugh. Hey, while you're in there, I'm locked out of the men's room. The code isn't working. Could you let me use the women's room real quick when you're done? I'm in a real bind here. Something about that request made my skin crawl. The men's room had the same keypad lock as the women's room, and he'd just come out of it. Why would he suddenly be locked out? Why not go inside and ask the clerk for help? The clerk can give you the code, I said, trying to sound calm. He's not there. I just checked. Must have stepped out back or something. Another pause. Come on, I really gotta go. Just open the door for a second. I didn't respond. I pulled out my phone, checking for signal. 2 bars. I opened my messaging app, ready to call someone if needed. Hello? The voice came again. You still in there? I stayed silent, letting him think I'd slipped past him. But I hadn't. After a moment, I heard footsteps again. They moved back and forth, pacing in the small alcove. Whoever it was, they weren't leaving. They were waiting. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. I was trapped. The bathroom had no windows, no other exits, just the one door. and someone was right outside it. I considered calling the police. But what would I tell them? Someone standing outside a public bathroom? They'd think I was paranoid. Then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. My stomach dropped as I read it. "You can't stay in there forever." I stared at my phone, trying to process what was happening, when it buzzed again. "The clerk really isn't inside." I checked. "It's just you and me out here." Another buzz. "Your car is the silver Honda, right? License plate ending in 3J7. They knew my car. They knew my license plate. This wasn't random. This was planned. But how? Why?" I texted back with shaking fingers. "I'm calling the police right now." The response came immediately. "And tell them what?" "I'm just a guy waiting to use a bathroom." He was right. I hadn't actually seen him. I didn't know what he looked like. If he walked away now and the police arrived, I'd just be locked in the bathroom explaining that someone sent me texts and stood outside the door. But I called 911 anyway. The dispatcher answered, and I explained the situation as calmly as I could. She took me seriously and said a unit was being sent, but she warned me that the nearest patrol car was 15 minutes away, possibly longer because of how remote the area was. "Stay on the line with me," she said. "Don't open the door. Is it still quiet out there?" I listened. No footsteps. No sounds. "I think he might have left," I whispered. "Don't assume that. Stay where you are." Then I heard something that changed everything, a car engine starting. Not close, but not far either. My car had a very distinctive sound, a slight rattle in the engine that I'd been meaning to fix. And that's exactly what I heard. "He's at my car," I said, panic rising in my voice. "I think he's at my car." I heard my car alarm go off. He was trying to break in. Or maybe he already had. I had to make a choice. Stay locked in the bathroom while he messed with my car, potentially stealing it or disabling it. Or take my chances and run. The dispatcher was still talking, telling me to stay put, but I wasn't thinking clearly anymore. I unlocked the door and threw it open, ready to run. The alcove was empty. I sprinted around the building, my car alarm still blaring. When I turned the corner, I could see the parking lot. My car was still there, alarm flashing and wailing, but no one was around it. No one in the parking lot at all. I ran to my car, fumbling with my keys, trying to shut off the alarm while scanning the area. The driver's side door was slightly ajar, though I was certain I'd locked it. The alarm stopped, and in the silence, I heard the dispatcher's voice still coming from my phone. "Are you okay?" "I'm here. I'm at my car," I said breathlessly. "I don't see anyone. The police are 3 minutes away. Stay in your vehicle with the doors locked." I got in and locked the doors immediately, still looking around frantically. How had he gotten to my car without me hearing him drive away? Had he never been in the bathroom at all? Had someone else been standing outside that door? Or were there two of them? The thought hit me like ice water. The dark pickup truck, the clerk who hadn't looked at me, who'd apparently been gone when the man checked. What if this was a regular thing for them? Trapping women in the bathroom while an accomplice messed with their cars? I didn't want to think about what would have happened if I'd opened the door when he first asked. The police arrived a few minutes later. I gave my statement, showed them the texts, and they checked the bathroom and the store. The clerk was back behind the counter, saying he'd been there the whole time, hadn't seen anyone matching my description, and there was no dark pickup truck. The officer was kind but skeptical. Sometimes people make honest mistakes about these things. The bathroom mix-up happens. If someone was texting you, they could have been doing it from anywhere. I insisted, pointing to my car door. It was open. I locked it, and the alarm went off. He gave me a sympathetic look. "I understand you were scared. Being alone out here at night, it can make your imagination run wild. But we've checked everything, and there's no sign of any threat. They couldn't trace the texts. The number was from an internet phone service, likely a burner app. There were no security cameras in the bathroom area, and no evidence anyone had been there besides my word. I drove away an hour later, still shaking, looking in my rearview mirror every few seconds. The police had assured me I was safe, that no one was following me, but I didn't believe them. I drove all the way to San Francisco without stopping, even though my gas light came on and I really needed a bathroom. I white-knuckled it to my friend's house, practically collapsing into her arms when she opened the door. She believed me, which helped. She let me stay as long as I needed, and didn't ask any questions when I insisted on locking her door and closing the curtains. But eventually, I had to face another road trip, another gas station, another bathroom. I've never gone back to that exit. I tried looking up the gas station later, but I couldn't remember which exit it was. Rural exits all look the same, each with a single gas station that could have been the one. What I can't stop thinking about is this. My car door was open. I know I locked it. And those texts, they knew my car, my license plate. Someone had been watching me. And sometimes, late at night, I get texts from unknown numbers. Random, innocuous messages. Hey, is this the right number? Or did you get my last message? I delete them without responding. But every so often, I'll get one that feels different. One that comes late at night when I'm alone. Just something simple, like, still careful? Or I see? Or, that's a nice neighborhood you live in now. I've changed my number 3 times, but the messages keep coming. They always come from different numbers. They're always untraceable. And I think about what the man outside the bathroom said, his voice calm, almost friendly. You can't stay in there forever. He was right then, and he's right now. I can't hide forever. I can't stay locked inside my apartment. I can't avoid every gas station. I can't stop driving at night. Eventually, I'll need to stop somewhere again. Eventually, I'll be alone, outside another bathroom, at another parking lot. And I wonder if he's still out there, watching, waiting. They were just sitting there. I don't pick up hitchhikers, but this isn't about a hitchhiker. This is about the people who were already in my car before I knew they were there. It was late April, past 10 p.m., and I was driving back from a wedding in Nevada. Around midnight, my engine suddenly died. No warning, just silence as I coasted onto the shoulder. I called roadside assistance, but the hold time was 45 minutes. I remembered seeing a gas station a few miles back and decided to walk to it. The station was an old, independent one with just 2 pumps and a small building. A dark SUV with tinted windows was parked by the pumps, but there wasn't anyone around. I went inside, and the young clerk behind the counter let me charge my phone. While I was waiting, a man came in. He was tall, maybe around 40, with a friendly but forgettable face. He went to the bathroom, then came over to me. I couldn't help but overhear. "Your car broke down?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes, actually. I'm a mechanic. I've got tools in my truck. I could take a look. Might be something simple." It sounded too good to be true, but I was desperate. Then I noticed the clerk give me a strange look. Not exactly a warning, but something uncomfortable. "You know what? I think I'll just wait for the tow service," I said quickly. "No problem," he replied, his smile still in place. "Your car is north of here, right? On the shoulder?" I hadn't told him which direction I was coming from. "How did you know that?" "You walked from that direction," he said, casually. Simple deduction. That made sense. But something still felt off. "I'll just wait," I repeated. His smile didn't change. "Suit yourself. But tow trucks can take hours. Your car's not in the safest spot." He paid for his coffee and left, heading toward the dark SUV. But instead of getting on the highway, he took a service road that ran parallel to the station, disappearing into the darkness. "That's weird," I said to the clerk. "Yeah," he replied, finally looking up. "He comes in here sometimes. always late at night, always strikes up conversations with people who are alone, people who need help. Why didn't you say something? I asked. Say what? He offers help. Sometimes they take him up on it. He paused for a moment. They don't usually come back here afterward. My stomach dropped. What do you mean? I never see them again, he said, his voice quiet. Could be they got their car fixed and left, he added. Could be. I didn't want to think about it, but my phone was barely charged, so I called roadside assistance again. This time, I got through. The dispatcher told me a truck would be there in about an hour and a half and suggested I wait at the gas station instead of alone on the shoulder. The clerk kept glancing out the window. Does this happen often? I asked. More than it should, he replied. Someone breaks down, comes in for help, then someone else shows up offering assistance. Different people, but always too helpful, always insistent. He looked at me directly. Last month, a guy's car overheated. Someone offered him a ride to get coolant. He left with them. His car was still on the shoulder 3 days later when it got towed. His wallet was in the glove compartment. His phone was on the seat. How many people? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. 3. That I know of, in the 6 months I've worked here. Why do you still work here? I asked. He laughed, but it wasn't funny. Someone needs to be here to tell people not to go with the helpers. That's what I call them. A truck driver came in, and I asked him to wait with me. When I pointed out the van and sedan I had seen earlier, he looked confused. Those cars have been here since before you arrived, he said. I saw them when I pulled in an hour ago. That was impossible. They'd followed me from the other gas station unless I'd been following them. Unless the man in my back seat had been telling the truth, and I had led him straight to where they were waiting. The tow truck arrived, and my car was fixed 2 days later. I drove home, taking a different route to avoid that highway, adding an hour to my trip. I never stopped at that gas station again, but last week, I was driving through on a Tuesday afternoon. I couldn't resist. I pulled off and drove past. There were several cars there, normal afternoon traffic. Then I saw the clerk outside, talking to a woman whose hood was up, smoke rising from her engine. As I watched, a dark SUV pulled in, followed by a silver sedan. Both parked away from the pumps, engines running. The clerk saw my car. Our eyes met. He gave a small shake of his head, a warning. Then he turned back to the woman, still talking, still keeping her engaged, still preventing her from walking toward the waiting vehicles. I drove away. The clerk was right. Someone did need to be there. Someone to stand between people who broke down and the people waiting for them. But what happens when the clerk isn't working? What happens on his days off? What happens to the people who break down when there's no one there to warn them? I still drive through that area sometimes. Every time, I make sure to check how much gas I have, how my engine sounds, whether any dashboard lights are on, because I know now that some breakdowns aren't random. Some are designed to strand you in exactly the right place, at exactly the right time. And somewhere on that highway, on a service road that loops back to a closed rest area, there are helpers waiting, patient, persistent, always ready to assist when you're most vulnerable and desperate. All you have to do is say yes. 2 days ago, my car wouldn't start in a parking garage. When I opened the hood, my battery cables were disconnected. Both of them had been carefully removed. There was a note tucked under one of the cables. They found you again. Get somewhere public. Don't drive alone. No signature. No explanation. I reconnected the battery and drove straight to the police station. They said disconnecting cables isn't a crime if nothing was stolen. They filed a report and sent me home. My car is parked outside right now. I've been watching it for 3 hours. So far, nothing. But I can't shake the feeling that someone else is watching too. Watching and waiting for me to get in and drive away. The man in my back seat said he was trying to help me. Maybe he was. Maybe he's still trying, leaving notes, warning me. Or maybe he's the danger, and the notes are just his way of making sure I'm too afraid to trust anyone else. Either way, I have to drive to work tomorrow. I have to get in that car eventually. And when I do, I don't know if I should be more afraid of what might be following behind me or what might already be waiting inside. The regular. My dad owned a gas station for 30 years. He always told me, if someone comes in every day at the same time and never buys the same thing twice, they're not there for what they're buying. I didn't take him seriously until it was too late. I took over managing the station 6 months ago. It's a small place off Route 9, mostly serving locals. About 2 months ago, he started coming in. Always at 6:47 p.m. Not 6:45, not 6:50, always 6:47. He was unremarkable, mid-40 seconds, average build, dressed in business casual. But he never bought the same thing twice. One day it was chips, the next day a sports drink, then candy, then gum. Always exact change, like he'd calculated it beforehand. And he never consumed anything he bought. He just set it on the passenger seat and drove away, always parked in the same spot, the farthest from the door, but with a direct view into the store. After 3 weeks, I noticed he'd stand at the counter longer than necessary after paying. His eyes would move around, checking the door, the corners, the back office, then to me like he was making sure something was in place. Then he'd leave. One evening, my coworker Riley was stocking shelves when he came in. After she walked to the back, he asked. She knew. Been here about a month, I replied, trying to keep it casual. She works this shift every day, I added. Something about the question made my skin crawl. Our schedules rotate. So I lied. He came back every night after that same time, same routine. By the second week, I started documenting his visits. 43 visits over 57 days. Security footage showed that after leaving, he often sat in his car for 10 to 15 minutes, just facing the building. I called the station and explained the situation. The manager said she'd look into it, but her tone changed when I gave my name. My manager will look into it, she said, suddenly guarded. I hung up, feeling uneasy. That night, I dreamed about cameras everywhere in the station, all pointed at me. In every lens, I saw the same reflection, the man smiling. He didn't show up for 3 days. Then, I made a mistake. Running late for work, I stopped at his station, despite everything. The only available pump was pump 3. He was working the register. When he saw me, his whole face lit up. Welcome back. We've been waiting. He held up my old loyalty card that I'd thrown away. You left this behind. 47 visits before you stopped. That's dedication. We value loyalty. I drove away while he stood there, the card pressed to my window, still smiling. That was 6 weeks ago. The notes haven't stopped. On my windshield every few days, handwritten on station letterhead. They know my new phone number. They know my work parking lot. We noticed you changed your hair. That's a nice new jacket. You seemed tired yesterday. I've started varying everything, different routes, different parking spots, trying to stay unpredictable. But yesterday's note said, we appreciate you trying to make this challenging. You can't visit 47 places without establishing a new pattern. We've been watching, we've been learning, and we're very, very patient. I counted the locations. I'd rotated through 47 places. Exactly. They'd tracked every single one, documented every attempt to escape. Last week, I was at a different gas station across town around 7:30 p.m. While paying, I heard the door chime behind me. I turned and saw a beige sedan pulling out of the lot. I couldn't see the driver, but my hands started shaking. The clerk noticed. You okay? Do you have a regular who comes in every day? Middle-aged guy? Glasses? Always buys something different? Her face went pale. How did you know that? I didn't answer. I just left, wondering what I should tell her. Watch out for the quiet customer who never does anything wrong. Since then, I've trained myself to notice patterns. I pay attention to who's around me, who shows up at the same places I do. And I keep seeing a beige sedan. Not every day, but often enough. Different locations, grocery store, gym, coffee shop. Never parked close. Always a few rows away. Last week, I started working at a bookstore. I haven't told anyone where, haven't established any routine. Yesterday was only my third shift. At 6:47 p.m. exactly, the door chime sounded. There he was. Same glasses, same expression. He walked straight to the counter, holding a bookmark and a street map of my neighborhood, the one I'd moved to 2 weeks ago. "This is a good area," he said quietly. "Quiet streets, not a lot of traffic at night. I'm sure you feel very safe there. I quit that job too. And the next one. Because now I understand what my dad meant. The purchases were never the point. They were about establishing familiarity, about becoming part of the background until he wasn't noticed anymore. I don't know what he wants or why he picked me. But this morning I found a receipt on my windshield from a gas station I'd stopped at 3 days ago. Time-stamped 4 minutes after I'd left. Written on the back, "See you at 6:47. I don't know where he means, but I know he'll be there at exactly 6:47, waiting to establish a new pattern. And eventually, I have to go somewhere. I have to work somewhere, shop somewhere, exist somewhere. And no matter where I go, sooner or later, that door will chime at 6:47, and he'll be right on time." I've always been the kind of person who follows directions exactly. GPS says, "Take the next exit." I take it. A recipe says, "Bake for 30 minutes." I set the timer for 30 minutes. So, when 3 different people recommended the same gas station to me within a week, I didn't think twice about going there. I should have. It started with my coworker, Derek. We were talking about an upcoming road trip I had planned to visit my parents upstate, and he mentioned a gas station off Highway 50. "Best coffee you'll ever have at a gas station," he said. "Family owned, been there forever. You should definitely stop there. It's right at mile marker 147. I thought it was a weird thing to be so specific about, but Derek was into craft coffee and local businesses, so I figured he was just being enthusiastic. I made a mental note and didn't think much of it. 3 days later, I was getting my oil changed and the mechanic, a guy I'd never met before, asked about my trip. "Are you taking Highway 50? There's this great gas station at mile marker 147. You should stop there. Really clean bathrooms, good snacks. Can't miss it." That was weird. Same highway, same mile marker, same enthusiasm. But I told myself it must be a well-known stop for people who traveled that route regularly. Maybe it was in some local travel blog or something. The third time was what made me really uncomfortable. I was at the grocery store, and the woman in line behind me dropped her credit card. I picked it up for her, and we started chatting. Somehow, my road trip came up. I think I mentioned I was buying snacks for the drive, and her whole face lit up. "Are you taking Highway 50? She asked. "There's a great gas station right at mile marker 147. You really should stop there." That's when I should have realized something was wrong, but I didn't. I just made a mental note to be cautious. And now, I can't shake the feeling that I'm being watched. The recommendation, "Are you taking Highway 50? You absolutely have to stop at this gas station at mile marker 147. It's incredible. Best place to take a break. Trust me, you won't regret it." Same highway, same mile marker, and that same weird enthusiasm from a stranger. The coincidence was too much. That night, I looked up the gas station online. It was real, Miller's Gas and Service. Family owned since 1987. The reviews were average, nothing special. The photos showed a standard rural gas station with 2 pumps and a small convenience store. There was no reason why 3 people would recommend it so specifically. so enthusiastically. I almost didn't stop. I almost drove right past it. But my curiosity got the best of me. By the time I reached mile marker 147, I needed gas anyway. It was just past noon on a Saturday, sunny, warm, and the place looked completely normal when I pulled in. One other car at the pumps, an older couple going inside as I parked. The station was exactly as advertised. Clean, well-maintained, and unremarkable. I filled my tank and went inside to pay. The woman behind the counter was maybe 60, gray hair pulled back in a ponytail, with a kind face. She smiled when I approached. "Just the gas?" she asked. "Yeah, pump 2, I replied. She rang it up. "Heading north or south?" "North," I said, handing her my card. "Nice day for a drive." She swiped my card and handed it back to me. "You've been here before?" "First time." "A few people recommended it actually," I said. Something flickered across her face. "Did they? That's nice. We appreciate the word of mouth." She printed my receipt but didn't hand it to me right away. Instead, she stared at me for a long moment. "Those people who recommended us, are they friends of yours?" "One coworker, one mechanic, one random person at the grocery store," I replied, trying to stay casual. She nodded slowly, her smile not quite reaching her eyes now. "And they all said to stop here, specifically at mile marker 147? Yeah. Kind of weird, right?" "Very specific," she agreed. She finally handed me the receipt, but as I took it, she held on to her end for just a second. "Be careful out there. People aren't always what they seem." I left feeling unsettled, but I told myself I was reading too much into it. Maybe the woman was just eccentric. Maybe she was just warning me about highway safety or something. I got back in my car and continued north on Highway 50. 20 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. I normally don't answer those, but I was bored on the drive and thought it might be something related to my parents' place. I answered. "Hello." There was heavy breathing on the other end. Then a male voice, quiet and strained. "You stopped there. You actually stopped there. Who is this?" "Mile marker 147. Miller's, you went inside." It wasn't a question, just a statement. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "How do you know that?" "Because I've been where you are." His voice was getting more agitated. "They told you to go there, didn't they? Multiple people. People you barely knew or didn't know at all saying the same thing. The same mile marker, the same enthusiasm." I felt cold despite the warm car. "What is this? What's going on?" "I don't know. I don't know." And that's what makes it worse. "But listen to me. Don't go back there. Don't ever go back there. And if people keep recommending it, if they keep bringing it up, don't acknowledge that you stopped. Do you understand? You're not making any sense." "Did the woman behind the counter say anything to you?" "An older woman. Gray hair." I hesitated. She asked if people had recommended the place. A long silence. Then, "What did you tell her?" I said, "Yes. I told her about the people who recommended it." "Jesus Christ," the voice cracked. Okay, listen. You need to vary your route home. Don't take Highway 50 back. Take a different highway, even if it's longer. And when you get home, pay attention to who talks to you about your trip. Pay attention to who asks where you stopped. This is insane. Who are you? Someone who stopped there 6 months ago. Someone who wishes he hadn't. The line went dead. I pulled over at the next rest stop, my heart racing. I tried to call the number back, but it went straight to a generic voicemail. I sat there for 20 minutes, trying to process what had just happened. A prank call? But how would they know I'd stopped at that specific gas station unless they'd been watching? And why would they warn me away from it? I spent the weekend at my parents' house, anxious but trying to convince myself I was just imagining things. I didn't mention the gas station or the phone call to them. On Sunday, as I was packing to leave, my mom asked about my drive up. Any trouble? Did you stop anywhere interesting? Just the standard rest stops, I lied. She looked at me for a moment too long. Good. That's good. Then she went back to packing me leftover food, and I tried to convince myself I was imagining the weird edge to her voice. I took Route 23 home instead of Highway 50, adding an hour to my drive. Better safe than sorry. When I got back to my apartment, everything seemed normal. I unpacked, did laundry, and went to bed early to prep for work on Monday. The next morning, Derek stopped by my desk. Hey, how was the trip? Did you stop at that gas station I recommended? I remembered the voice on the phone. Don't acknowledge that you stopped. Didn't see it. Must have missed it. He stared at me. Just stared. His expression completely blank. After what felt like forever, he smiled. Too bad. You would have loved it. Then he walked away. The mechanic called that afternoon. I'd left my sunglasses in the waiting room. Did I want to pick them up? When I got there, he handed them to me and asked, casual as anything, "So, did you check out Miller's like I suggested?" "Didn't have time to stop," I said. His smile faded. "Really? You drove right past it." "I was in a hurry." He studied my face. "Huh, that's a shame. Maybe next time." But the way he said it made my skin crawl. It sounded less like a suggestion and more like a certainty, like he knew there would be a next time. That week, I started noticing things. The woman from the grocery store was there again, in a different checkout line. She looked right at me and smiled. My neighbor, who I'd barely spoken to in 2 years, knocked on my door to borrow sugar and asked if I'd gone on my trip. A guy at the coffee shop, someone I'd never seen before, struck up a conversation about road trips and somehow brought up Highway 50. I stopped going to that grocery store. Started getting coffee at a different place, but it didn't matter. The recommendations kept coming. Different people in different places, everyone asking if I'd stopped at Miller's. All of them with that same enthusiasm when they first brought it up and that same blank disappointment when I said I hadn't. I went back through my credit card statements and found the charge from Miller's Gas and Service. I called the number listed on the receipt. The same woman answered. "Miller's Gas and Service. Hi. I stopped there last week. I'm calling because something weird has been happening since then. People recommending I come back." Her voice was flat, unsurprised. "Yes. How did you? How many so far?" She interrupted. "I don't know. 10? 12? It'll be more," she said. "They'll keep asking, keep recommending. Some of them don't even know why they're doing it. They just feel compelled to bring it up, to encourage people to stop here." She sighed. "I tried to warn you. I tried to warn everyone, but most people don't listen. What is this? What's happening? I don't know. My husband and I bought this place 30 years ago, and it's been like this for at least that long, maybe longer. People stop here, and then other people start recommending it to travelers. More people stop, more recommendations spread. It's like a virus, but it's not consistent. Some people stop here and nothing happens. Others," she trailed off. "Others what?" "Others become part of it. They start recommending it to everyone they meet who's traveling. They can't help it. It's like the place gets in their head, and they need to share it, need to bring more people here. And the more people they convince to stop, the more intense they get about it." "That's impossible. I know how it sounds, but you've seen it yourself. You felt it. Tell me I'm wrong." I couldn't, because she wasn't wrong. I thought about Derek's blank stare, the mechanic's certainty, the stranger at the coffee shop. What do I do? What you've been doing. Don't tell people you stopped here. Don't come back. Eventually, they'll lose interest. Usually takes a few months, sometimes longer. Usually. She didn't answer that last part. I should go. We have customers. She hung up. That was 4 months ago. The recommendations have slowed down, but haven't stopped completely. Last week, my dentist, who I've been seeing for 5 years, asked if I ever took Highway 50 for my trips upstate. When I said sometimes, she launched into an enthusiastic description of Miller's Gas and Service at mile marker 147. Her eyes had that same gleam I'd seen in everyone else's. I said I'd never heard of it. She stared at me, and for just a second, something flickered across her face, something almost angry. Then she smiled and went back to examining my teeth, but her hands were rougher than usual, and she didn't make small talk for the rest of the appointment. I've started keeping a list of everyone who's recommended the gas station to me. It's up to 43 people now. Some are people I know, some are strangers I've encountered once and never seen again. But lately, I've noticed something disturbing. Some names appear twice. People who recommended it months ago, then stopped mentioning it, are now bringing it up again. But they don't remember telling me about it the first time. They think it's a new recommendation, a fresh suggestion, and they're more insistent now. Derek has invited me to lunch 4 times in the past 2 weeks. He never did that before. The mechanic called about a recall notice on my car that doesn't exist. The woman from the grocery store was standing outside my apartment building yesterday. She said she was visiting a friend in the complex, but when I asked which friend, she just smiled and walked away. I'm planning another trip to see my parents next month. I'll take Route 23 again, avoid Highway 50 entirely. But I'm scared. I'm scared because I've started having dreams about the gas station, about pulling in, about walking inside, about that woman behind the counter looking at me with sad, knowing eyes. In the dreams, there are other people there. Lots of them standing in the aisles, not buying anything, just watching me, waiting for something. And here's what terrifies me most. 2 days ago, I caught myself telling someone about a great gas station off Highway 50. A coworker I barely know who mentioned she had a road trip coming up. The words came out before I could stop them. Enthusiastic and specific and familiar. There's this amazing place at mile marker 147, Miller's Gas and Service. You should definitely stop there. She wrote it down, and I felt relieved, like I'd accomplished something important, like I'd done exactly what I was supposed to do. I don't know if I'm becoming one of them, or if I already am. I don't know if the dreams will stop or if they'll get worse. I don't know what happens to people who keep recommending the place, who can't stop themselves from bringing it up to every traveler they meet. But I do know this. If you ever take Highway 50 and someone recommends a gas station at mile marker 147, don't stop. Even if multiple people tell you about it, even if they're insistent, even if it seems like a harmless coincidence. Because once you stop there, once you walk inside and that woman behind the counter sees you, you become part of something. Something that spreads and grows, pulling more people in person by person, recommendation by recommendation. And if you're reading this, if you've somehow come across this warning, I need to tell you something. There's this incredible gas station off Highway 50, right at mile marker 147, Miller's Gas and Service. The coffee is amazing. The bathrooms are spotless. You should really check it out. You won't regret it. I promise. The helpers. I broke down on I-84 at the worst possible time, almost midnight on a Wednesday, in the middle of nowhere, with only 3% battery on my phone. The engine just died. No warning, no sputtering, just complete silence as I coasted onto the shoulder. Barely enough momentum to get fully off the road. I sat there for a moment, hazard lights blinking, trying not to panic. My phone had enough juice for one call. I tried roadside assistance, but the hold time was 45 minutes. I hung up and stared at the dark highway stretching in both directions. No cars, no lights, except for a faint glow on the horizon that might have been a town or might have been nothing. Then I remembered seeing a gas station sign a few miles back. Maybe they'd still be open. Maybe someone there could help, or at least let me charge my phone. I locked my car, pocketed my keys and dead phone, and started walking. The shoulder was narrow, and the night was darker than I expected, with clouds covering whatever moon there might have been. I walked for about 20 minutes before I saw the lights ahead, the blue and white glow of a gas station sign. As I got closer, I saw it was one of those old independent places, probably family-owned, with 2 pumps and a small building. The lights were on inside, and I felt a wave of relief. There was one car parked by the pumps, a dark SUV with tinted windows. The station's door was propped open with a brick, and I could hear classic rock playing inside, turned low. I walked in and saw a young guy behind the counter, maybe in his early 22nd, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when I entered. "Hey, my car broke down a couple miles back," I said. "Could I charge my phone here? I need to call for a tow." He glanced at my dead phone, then nodded toward an outlet near the coffee station. "Yeah, sure. Help yourself." I thanked him and plugged in my phone. While I waited for it to power up enough to make a call, I grabbed a bottle of water and a granola bar. The guy rang me up without much interest and went back to his phone. I was about to ask if there was a local tow service he'd recommend when I heard footsteps behind me. A man had come in tall, maybe in his 42nd, wearing a flannel jacket and jeans. He had a friendly but forgettable face. He nodded at both of us and headed straight for the bathroom in the back. I thought nothing of it and went to check on my phone, still powering up. These things always take forever when they die completely. A minute later, the man came out of the bathroom and approached me. "Excuse me," he said. I couldn't help but overhear. "You said your car broke down?" "Yeah, a couple miles back," I replied. "What kind of car?" he asked. I told him. He nodded thoughtfully. "I'm actually a mechanic. I've got tools in my truck. I could take a look at it, if you want. Might be something simple. Save you the cost of a tow." It seemed almost too good to be true. But I was desperate. And he seemed genuine. "Really? That would be amazing. No problem. Let me just grab my coffee." He walked to the coffee station and started pouring himself a cup. While his back was turned, the clerk caught my eye. He gave me a weird look. Not quite a warning, but something uncomfortable. When the mechanic turned back around, the clerk quickly looked down at his phone again. That small interaction made me hesitate. "You know what? I should probably just wait for the tow service. Don't want to trouble you." "It's no trouble at all," the mechanic replied, smiling. But his eyes stayed flat. "I'm heading that direction anyway." "How did you know that?" I asked, feeling unsettled. "You walked from that direction," he said, gesturing toward the door. Simple deduction. That made sense, but something still felt off. I glanced at the clerk, who was deliberately not looking at either of us. "I think I'll just wait here and make my call," I said. The mechanic's smile didn't falter. "Suit yourself. But tow trucks can take hours out here, especially this time of night. Your car is not in the safest spot on that shoulder. Someone could sideswipe it in the dark." He took a sip of his coffee. "But hey, your choice." He paid for his coffee and left. I watched through the window as he got into the dark SUV I'd seen earlier, the one that had been there when I arrived. He sat there for a moment, engine running, then slowly pulled out of the lot. But he didn't get back on the highway going either direction. He took a service road that ran parallel to the station, disappearing into the darkness. "That was weird," I said to the clerk. "Yeah. He's not really a mechanic, is he?" The clerk shrugged. "I don't know what he is. He comes in here sometimes. Always late at night. Always strikes up conversations with people. Especially people who are alone, people who seem like they need help." A chill ran down my spine. "Why didn't you say something?" "Say what?" "He hasn't done anything. He offers to help people. Sometimes they take him up on it." He paused. "They don't usually come back here afterward." "What do you mean they don't come back?" "I mean, I never see them again. Could be they got their car fixed and went on their way. Could be they decided to use a different gas station next time. Could be. He trailed off, looking back at his phone, like he regretted saying anything. I felt sick. My phone was only at 15%, but I unplugged it and tried calling roadside assistance again. This time it went straight to a busy signal. I tried 3 more times. Same thing. Can I use your phone? I asked the clerk. Mine's barely working. Store policy, he said. Can't let customers use the phone. Sorry, this is kind of an emergency, I said, feeling panicked. Look, I'm not supposed to. You can stay here until your phone charges more. It's fine. Just don't go with anyone who offers you a ride, okay? I nodded, sitting down in a plastic chair near the coffee station, trying to calm my racing heart. I was overreacting. The guy was probably just a nice person offering help. The clerk was probably just being paranoid because of working overnight shifts in the middle of nowhere. I'd wait here, charge my phone, call a legitimate tow service, and everything would be fine. Then the door opened and a woman walked in. She was maybe 50, wearing a business suit that seemed out of place at a rural gas station at midnight. She looked at me, then at the clerk, then back at me. Is everything all right? She asked. You look upset. I'm fine, thanks. Just waiting for my phone to charge. She walked closer. Your car broke down? I hadn't remembered mentioning it within her earshot. How did you? I passed it on my way here. Looked like someone might be stranded, she said, smiling warmly. I'm heading north. I could give you a ride to the next town if you need one. There's a hotel there and they could probably recommend a good tow service. That's really kind, but I'm just going to wait here. Are you sure? It's going to be a long wait, and it's not really safe. A young woman alone on the side of the road in the middle of the night. She pulled out her phone. Look, I understand if you're nervous about taking a ride from a stranger. How about I call the tow service for you right now? What's your roadside assistance number? Something about her insistence made my skin crawl. I've got it handled. Thank you. Her smile faded slightly. I really think you should reconsider. It's not safe to stay here. The clerk suddenly spoke up, his voice firm. She said she's got it handled. Maybe you should head out. The woman turned to look at him, and something passed between them that I couldn't read. She turned back to me. If you change your mind, I'll be getting gas. Just come outside. Then she left. Through the window, I watched her pump gas into a silver sedan that hadn't been there when I arrived. How long had she been here? The clerk was right. I hadn't seen her car, unless it had been parked on the far side of the building where I couldn't see it from my approach. My phone was at 25% now. I tried the roadside assistance number again. This time it rang. Someone answered, and I quickly explained my situation and gave them my location. They said a truck would be there in about an hour and a half. Relief washed over me. I'll wait with my car, I told the dispatcher. It's on the northbound shoulder, a couple miles from... Actually, the clerk interrupted. You should stay here. It's warmer, and you can see the tow truck when it passes. You can wave them down. The dispatcher seemed to agree. That's probably safer than waiting alone on the highway. So, I stayed at the gas station, sitting in that plastic chair, watching the clerk pretend to be absorbed in his phone while constantly glancing out the window. The woman in the business suit had finished pumping her gas, but her car was still there. She was sitting in the driver's seat, and from what I could tell, she was looking at the gas station. Does this happen a lot? I asked the clerk. People offering to help stranded drivers. He was quiet for a long moment. More than it should. And it's always the same pattern. Someone breaks down near here, comes in to get help, and then someone else shows up offering assistance. Different people, but always too helpful, always insistent. He finally looked directly at me. Last month, a guy came in. His car had overheated. Someone offered him a ride to get coolant from the auto parts store in the next town. He left with them. His car was still on the shoulder the next morning. Still there 3 days later when it got towed. He never came back for it. Did you call the police? They said he probably abandoned it. Probably decided it wasn't worth fixing and caught a bus or something. But his wallet was still in the glove compartment. His phone was on the front seat. He shrugged. They said people do that sometimes when they're frustrated or financially stressed. I felt cold. How many people has this happened to? I've been working here 6 months. 3 that I know of for sure. Maybe more on shifts I don't work. Why do you still work here? He laughed, but there was no humor in it. Because someone needs to be here to tell people not to go with the helpers. The helpers, I said quietly. That's what I call them. The people who show up right after someone breaks down. The ones who are too eager to help, too insistent. I don't know what they want or why they do it. I don't know if they're working together or if it's just some kind of sick coincidence, but I know that the people who leave with them don't come back. Outside, the woman in the business suit finally started her car and pulled away, but she didn't get on the highway. She took the same service road the mechanic had taken. I watched her taillights disappear. Where does that road go? I asked. Loops back to the highway about 5 miles north. There's an old rest area out there that's been closed for years. Sometimes the helpers' cars are parked there during the day. He paused. Sometimes I see cars there that look familiar. Cars that used to belong to people who stopped here. We sat in silence for a while. I checked my phone every few minutes, watching the battery percentage climb and the time tick by. The clerk served 2 more customers, a trucker who came in for coffee and left without incident, and an elderly couple who used the bathroom and bought lottery tickets. Normal people, safe people. At 1:47 a.m., I saw the tow truck drive past, heading north. I jumped up and ran outside, waving my arms. The truck slowed, pulled a U-turn, and came back. The driver got out, an older man with a friendly face and a company logo on his shirt. "You the one who called?" he asked. I nodded. "My car is about 2 miles north. Let's go get you taken care of." I started to get in the truck, then hesitated. I looked back at the gas station. The clerk was standing in the doorway, watching. "Thank you for warning me, for letting me stay," I said. He nodded. "Be careful, and maybe," he lowered his voice, "maybe take a different route home. Don't come back this way if you can help it." I got in the tow truck. The driver was chatty, asking about where I was headed and what had happened to my car. I gave short answers, too exhausted and rattled to make conversation. When we reached my car, he hooked it up and said he could tow it to a shop that opened at 7 a.m. I could wait in his truck, or he could drop me at a hotel. I chose the hotel. I checked in, went to my room, and collapsed on the bed, fully clothed. I didn't sleep. I kept thinking about the mechanic and the woman in the business suit, about the service road and the closed rest area, about the cars that belonged to people who didn't come back. My car was fixed 2 days later. The alternator had died, simple replacement. I paid the bill and drove home, taking Route 20 instead of I-84, adding an hour to my trip. I've driven through that area a few times since then for work. I always make sure my car is in perfect condition before I go. I always fill up my tank before I get anywhere near that stretch of highway. And I never stop at that gas station. But last week, I was driving through on a Tuesday afternoon and I couldn't help myself. I pulled off the highway and drove past the station. There were several cars there, people pumping gas, going inside for snacks. Normal afternoon traffic. I almost kept driving. Then I saw the clerk. He was outside talking to a woman whose hood was up, smoke coming from her engine. He was shaking his head at something, pointing back at the station. The woman looked frustrated. As I drove slowly past, I saw a dark SUV pull into the lot and a silver sedan, both parking away from the pumps, just sitting there with their engines running. The clerk saw my car. Our eyes met for just a second. He gave a small, almost imperceptible shake of his head, a warning. Then he turned back to the woman, still talking, still keeping her engaged, still keeping her from walking toward those waiting vehicles. I drove away and I realized the clerk was right. Someone did need to be there. Someone needed to stand between the people who broke down and the people who waited for them. Someone needed to warn them, delay them, keep them safe for just long enough. But what happens when the clerk isn't working? What happens on his days off, or when he finally quits because the weight of it becomes too much? What happens to all the people who break down on that stretch of highway when there's no one there to warn them? I still drive through that area sometimes. I can't always avoid it. And every time I do, I make sure to note how much gas I have, how my engine sounds, whether any dashboard lights are on, because I know now that some breakdowns aren't random. Some things are designed to strand you in exactly the right place at exactly the right time, and somewhere on that stretch of highway, on a service road that loops back to a closed rest area, there are helpers waiting, patient and persistent and always ready to assist, always ready to offer a ride, to fix your car, to help you when you're most vulnerable and most desperate. All you have to do is say yes and hope you get the chance to say anything ever again. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. Comment your thoughts, hit like, and subscribe to Creepy Darker, where every night hides a new nightmare.